Welcome to this explainer. Imagine this for a second. You're flying over the open ocean. The weather? Totally fine. But then, all of a sudden your instruments just start failing. You look down and you have absolutely no idea where you are. Every direction looks exactly the same, and your fuel gauge is literally dropping by the minute. It's terrifying, right? Well, this isn't just some nightmare scenario. It's exactly the kind of story that birthed the most famous and probably most feared stretch of ocean in the world. Today, we're diving deep into the Bermuda Triangle. We're going to peel right past all those Hollywood myths, the supernatural rumors, the whole shebang, to see exactly what really happens out there.
Now, instead of focusing on, underwater pyramids or alien abductions, let's look at the verified history from our source material. We're trying to uncover the truth behind a genuinely staggering statistic. Over 1,000 missing ships and aircraft. Just think about that number. For decades, the public has been completely obsessed with this patch of the Atlantic. But the real history, the verifiable, documented timeline, actually kicks off with one very specific, very chilling event.
We're starting with the timeline of Flight 19. On December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale for what was supposed to be just a routine exercise. Just 2 hours later, a radio transmission comes in. We seem to be off course. We cannot see land. By nightfall, all 5 aircraft, carrying 14 men, simply vanished. But guys, it gets worse. A rescue plane, a massive Mariner with a 13-man crew, was sent out to find them. And it vanished too. 27 men, just gone. There was absolutely zero wreckage, and no bodies were ever recovered. They entered the triangle, and they never came out.
A massive scale of disappearance like that naturally forces us to ask, what on earth is really at play here? We're talking about a massive 500,000 square kilometer expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Honestly, the term Bermuda Triangle wasn't even coined until 1964, which is way after Flight 19. But once it was, it basically became a catch-all for literally every tragedy in the region. How does a modern ship or a massive plane just evaporate across 500,000 square kilometers of ocean?
Well, there is a massive tonal whiplash between the legendary myth and the cold clinical reality here. Public perception is heavily dominated by this idea of supernatural disappearances. But the U.S. Coast Guard, they explicitly state that the Bermuda Triangle doesn't even exist as an area of unusual danger. When you actually adjust the number of disappearances for the massive daily volume of shipping and flight traffic passing through, the rate of loss isn't statistically higher than any other comparable ocean area in the entire world.
To completely deflate the supernatural myth, all you really have to do is follow the money. Take Lloyd's of London, for example. They're the world's largest insurance market, right? Their entire business model is built on accurately calculating risk. And let me tell you, if there's one thing insurance companies fear more than sea monsters, it is losing money. If there was genuinely an elevated risk of a ship falling into another dimension, Lloyd's of London would definitely know about it. And more importantly, they would charge you for it. But they don't. They do not charge a single cent more for a ship passing through this area.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that a lot of this mystery was literally just manufactured. Back in 1975, a researcher named Lawrence Kuesch decided to actually sit down and fact-check the best-selling books about the triangle. And his findings? Incredibly damning. Many of the ships that supposedly mysteriously disappeared had actually vanished during highly documented massive storms. Storms that authors conveniently forgot to mention. Other ships had disappeared in completely different oceans altogether. And incredibly, some of the ships claimed to be lost had never even disappeared at all. Crazy, right?
Section 1. Flight 19. The Brutal Reality.
Okay, so if the legend was mostly just cooked up by authors wanting to sell books, what actually doomed Flight 19? The evidence points to a brutal reality. The lead pilot, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, became severely disoriented. He thought he was flying over the Florida Keys, but he was almost certainly off course over the Bahamas. Because of this fatal geographical error, every single correction he made actually pushed the flight further and further out into the open ocean. By nightfall, they were completely out of fuel, flying in rapidly deteriorating weather. And that rescue plane? A crew member on a surface ship reported seeing a mid-air explosion at the exact time and location the Mariner was flying. So the tragic loss of those 27 men wasn't supernatural. It was a perfect storm of navigation failure, terrible luck, bad weather, and a mechanical explosion.
Section 2. The Real Dangers. Deadly Science.
Now, just because the supernatural myth is fake, definitely does not mean this area is safe. The ocean is still incredibly dangerous due to entirely natural phenomena, like rogue waves.
Imagine you're on a massive cargo ship, and without any warning whatsoever, a 30-meter-high wall of water that's almost 100 feet tall just rises up out of the open ocean and slams right into your vessel. These aren't tidal waves caused by earthquakes. They're spontaneous waves caused by converging ocean swells and currents, which this area is notorious for. A wave that size can literally break a giant ship in half in a matter of seconds.
And here's another fascinating but deadly hazard: methane hydrate eruptions. The seafloor in this region holds vast deposits of trapped methane gas. If a seismic event causes one of these deposits to erupt, a massive bubble of gas just rushes to the surface. This dramatically drops the density of the water above it. So, if a ship happens to be sailing over that exact spot at that exact moment, the water can no longer support its weight. The ship loses buoyancy instantly and drops like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. There is absolutely zero time to even reach the radio for a distress signal.
Section 3. The truly unexplained. The rule of the unknown.
All right, we've debunked the myths and we've looked at the science, but we must honestly confront the chilling, true outliers that remain entirely unexplained to this day. The USS Cyclops is the absolute perfect example of a deeply unsettling mystery. Back in March 1918, this massive U.S. Navy cargo ship was sailing right through the Triangle area, and then it vanished. No distress signal was ever sent, not a single piece of wreckage, not a life preserver, not even a scrap of wood was ever found. And unlike the cases Lawrence Cush debunked, there is absolutely no major storm on record in the area at that time. A massive military vessel just simply ceased to exist.
309. I really want you to allow the sheer weight of that number to sink in. That is 309 crew members lost in a single vanishing act. To this very day, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains the largest non-combat loss of life in the entire history of the United States Navy. Over a century later, and we are literally no closer to knowing what happened to them than we were the day they failed to arrive in port.
So, what's the big takeaway? The Bermuda Triangle is clearly not the supernatural gateway that science fiction writers and 1970s paperbacks wanted us to believe it was. The majority of its mystery is entirely manufactured. But the ocean itself? Oh, it is very real. Its physical dangers, the staggering depths, the explosive storms, those terrifying rogue waves are incredibly real. And some of what the Atlantic Ocean has taken, it is never, ever given back. Whether you believe in the extraordinary, or whether you just simply respect the ocean's vast power to hide its secrets forever, the reality of the unknown, completely without embellishment, is absolutely haunting. It really leaves us to wonder, with all our modern technology and satellite mapping, what else is out there in the deep, just waiting to be swallowed up next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.